Hello and welcome to the Baseball Wisconsin podcast. This is your host, Tim Gotzler. All right, so we're in first inning, game 8, and I was like, man, how do I get this started? Well, I wanted to look at our 2026 Hall of Fame class, and we just have some absolute studs going in. But, as a coach I've been trying to track down for a while and finally got him on this year. Talking about Coach Mike Davenport. So for those who are paying attention to college baseball in the state of Wisconsin, I mean, you got to talk about some of the iconic, legendary programs in our state, and you got to mention Madison College. Coach D's resume is just, it would take too long to read it all. And that's not the point of this episode for him. He wants to talk, about a variety of things that they do. And it's a fantastic episode to talk about practice planning, player development, recruiting, what they're looking for, and I just absolutely love this episode. Also got a chance to see him, give his Hall of Fame speech. A really cool moment in any coach's and any person's baseball journey. And they're off and running, right? College baseball season's going, another season for the Wolfpack, and just really excited to get you this episode. So without further ado, head baseball coach and now WBCA Hall of Famer from Madison College, Mike Davenport. Hey, Coach, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Well, hey, for the listeners, once you get us started, give us some of your background. Where'd you grow up? Kind of a little bit of your journey in baseball.
I grew up in DeKalb, Illinois. So Northern Illinois University is in DeKalb. If those Wisconsiners that don't know where it's at, not too far away. It's just about probably an hour and a half south of Madison. So I went to DeKalb High School, and as a little kid was drawn to sports like many little boys, and played everything growing up. And then, got to high school and I ended up being golf, basketball, baseball. And funny enough, as a 5'11" guard that wasn't super athletic and springy, I had more options probably for small school basketball contact from coaches than I did from baseball. But I knew baseball was going to be the route that I was going to go. Loved playing basketball. Golf was just kind of fun. Do something and stay busy, and just the game of baseball itself drew to me when I was a really young kid, and probably followed it more insanely than a 9, 10, 11-year-old boy probably should, and knowing things, and got into the stats of baseball cards and all the old school stuff. So, but so from there I went to Kishwaukee Junior College, just outside of DeKalb, so a local junior college, and walked on there as a player, like preferred walk-on. So I knew that I had a spot on the team. There weren't a ton of players on the team, but Tom Barnard was the head coach and just built this thing into a national power and a bunch of drafts. And it was a great program, great teacher, and great learning experience for me. Didn't play a ton, especially my first year. Just played a few games, ended up losing a year of eligibility at the 4-year level as I tried to get myself an extra year, got denied later on. But after my time at Kish, then went to Clark College in Dubuque, Iowa. And as I left Kish, it was kind of funny. I would have been the Tide of Wisconsin. When the Badgers got rid of their program, Northern had not had a program for like 12 years. So they brought it back the year that the year that the Badgers dropped it. And I don't know the specifics. I can't remember the names of the players, but I think the 2 middle infielders that were going to be seniors for Wisconsin transferred together to Northern Illinois and played there when the first year they brought it back. So, my options out of Kishwaukee were preferred walk-on at Northern, ended up being Clark, and then I think St. Ambrose was another NAI program and a little bit better of a program at that point. But for me, choosing Clark was the right move. I needed to go to a place to where it wasn't going to be guaranteed I was going to get to play, but it was their first year of a program as well at the NAI level. Not a ton of scholarship money, good academic school. And it was, I regret nothing. And wanting to play D1 as a kid, like everybody, and pro ball and all that, I I made a mature decision instead of trying to compete as a preferred walk-on again. After kind of doing that already at a really high level junior college, I knew that I wanted to be involved in coaching if playing didn't work out, and that it was going to be pretty tough to relate to players in my mind if I didn't get a chance to play at the college level. So went to Clark and had 2 really good years as a player there, and they were all freshmen but me and one other guy that was kind of in the same spot that I was at when we transferred from Kishwaukee. And first year program, not a ton of funding, not a whole lot of pitching depth. One other assistant coach that was a lawyer in town and could only be there a couple days a week. So after our first practice and going through, I must have looked like I knew what I was doing, because the coach, Ed Fan is his name, great human being, great person, great coach, just said, "Hey, you and Sam," was the guy that I play with, Sam Kanak, who's been a college coach as well. He just said, "If you guys have anything you want to contribute, and you can just pretty much be a player coach if you're okay going that route." And it wasn't like player coach, for sure was not anything close to that, but it was almost like you got a bunch of true freshmen playing at a NAI D3 level, and 2 guys that didn't play much at a good JUCO. So we'd seen good baseball. So that was huge for me and opening me up to actually be able to talk as not a coach, but somebody who had seen it even when I was playing. So that was a big piece to me, knowing that coaching was the right thing for me.
So then the playing career, well, before I go on to your coaching career, I got to hear about you as a player. All right. So
Yeah.
talked about the journey, more of a basketball guy first, a little bit of golf,
Yeah.
go on to play college baseball. Like what type of player were you? And like, do you feel like that's rubbed off on who you became as a coach?
In some ways, for sure. I would tell you, in my mind, I truly believe it to be true. As a young guy, I thought I was going to play in the major leagues, even as a little guy. That I was born with a heart defect. I ended up later in life had a heart surgery. I wasn't able to lift heavy weights. So even without being able to like really put mass on, in my mind, I was going to be good enough to be I was going to climb the ladder and I was going to be a major leaguer. And real quickly into like that part, I was a worker. I can honestly say that I don't have to question whether I worked hard enough to give myself a chance to achieve me being the best. And you can always do more, but I was relentless. I was a relentless worker. And playing on this team that was all freshmen, and me and another junior college guy, it was I did end up in the lineup all the time. I hit anywhere between first and third for 2 straight years, and like I said, I had 2 good years. I was all region, I think, both years, and all conference both years, and so it was just it was refreshing to know that I thought I was a good player, even though I didn't play much at this JUCO, and produced the 2 years that I did play. Um, my strength was that I was just a fundamental player that did have some baseball looseness and some quickness. I stole a decent number of bases for a guy that wasn't a burner. I was like a 7 flat 60 guy. In my mind, I remember 6.99. It might have been downhill with the wind at my back, was my best 60 ever, just so I could say I broke 7. But didn't have a ton of strength, but I hardly ever swung and missed. And I'd say like the best part of my game was just the general understanding. I do feel like I was maybe a little bit farther along than most people in terms of like my knowledge of helping myself, and a lot of that had to do from the program that I played in prior to getting there. Was a lot of teaching, and super competitive place. But I think in my 2 years at Clark, I actually just went in as a player to their Hall of Fame 2 summers ago. Um, and that one, to me, obviously you want to think that you were a good player. So that was a nice validation in later in life that I'd had a good career. But looking back at it, we didn't play a ton of games the first year, played more the second year, but I think I had over 200 at bats and struck out 9 times total in 2 years. So like 5 one year, 4 another year, or something along those lines. And 2 were in one game against a dude that pitched like maybe up to AAA, and it's like, oh, there's a real slider. So, um, but so for me, as a guy that didn't have plus bat speed, wasn't a plus runner, my arm strength was just okay. I played college shortstop, and at a really high level, I could have fielded the position, but I'm sure I would have been a second baseman. So my hands were good. That was probably the best part of what people saw from the outside of me, is that I was a really good defender and as an infielder. But I just took pride in just being a really tough out. I was good with hit and run and all those things that, to be I wanted to be a two hitter. And if I was that's kind of how I modeled everything that I did as a player, and being a tough out, because a lot of times those are the guys that have to take pitches to let people steal. Got a ton of hit and runs. A lot of my hits were on hit and runs. Even like inner third pitches, I could still move the ball to right field, just because of how my swing worked. It was way more inside out than I would teach our guys at times. But what I would say is, as a guy who was under abilitied, looking back, especially, there are not very many guys that I've coached at Kishwaukee or here that didn't have as much or more physical talent than me. And to know what they're capable of physically, and knowing that I didn't strike out, we do hit really well with two strikes. That's kind of one of the calling cards of our relentlessness towards the end of the year. We just want to be really good and put 9 guys out there that are going to just be miserable to get through. And so that is a large part of, I think, our hitting approach, especially at two strikes, came from what I was capable of doing as a guy that I feel truly has less ability than almost everybody that I coach.
All right. Well, there's so much there. I mean, I can just picture you as a young kid, just become a junkie. Again, baseball cards, statistics. You just
Yeah.
got one of those brains. Relentless worker. I mean, so many coaches I get to talk to on this podcast have such a similar story. Undersized, grinder, had to out fundamental, out grind everyone, and they just had that love for the game.
Yep.
And eventually, you get into coaching. It takes you probably a little bit to find your coaching voice. Obviously, your journey to Clark, in many ways, jump started that. I'm just kind of picturing, two 20 to 21-year-olds in there with a bunch of 18-year-olds, mentoring them through. But eventually, playing career ends and you get into the coaching side. So, what do those first couple of years look like? And when do you think you found your coaching style, your coaching voice?
Well, it's ever evolving, right? I mean, it really does have to be. I've said, even at this age, of doing it as long as I have, I think I'm in my 32nd year of JUCO, 31st, man, I can't remember, but it's a long time. But if I'm done listening, whether I change or anybody's going to get me to do something different at this point, it's going to be pretty tough. But I do say that if I'm not willing to listen, then I may as well just stop coaching. And if I'm not open to conversations from other people, then it's never going to be that way with me. I mean, I do want to hear other people's thoughts. I'm really strongly opinionated on some things, but there's also a lot of leeway with other things. And so, really, okay, so Clark and Coach Fan letting me and Sam, the JUCO guy, not be coaches, but talk. And then people respected us because we were workers. Um, I guess I would say one of the more proud things I would say as a player is that we weren't very good, like overall. I think we won 8 and 9 games, 7 and 8, something like that. We only had one legit pitcher, and when he pitched, we had a chance. We beat all of the really good teams in our league when he pitched. We had another guy who was okay, and then we had strike throwers. And so it wasn't about the winning and losing. It was about the guys showing up every day to work. And I came from a place that instilled that, and almost forced, I would say, would be maybe a stronger word for a better word for that. Um, but just not talking sometimes and just leading by example. And then other times being willing to say, hey man, you are not here today. Like, well, what is going on? So that part of me playing and having that opportunity did start my coaching some. The really interesting thing is that, so I played my 2 years at Clark. I had mentioned before, I appealed to get another year back. I'd played one doubleheader the very last games of the year in junior college, my first year. And it was because of injury and food poisoning. Right. Now I look back and wish obviously I hadn't said yes to playing, but I had no idea. I was 18 years old. Nobody explained anything to me. Probably didn't even know what the eligibility rules were. So you can play, sure, I'll play. Right. But I didn't get it back. It ended up being a blessing in disguise. The other guy that I was with did get to play, the other JUCO guy. So when I was there, I had one semester left to finish like two majors at Clark, between Clark and Loras. Had a dual academic program at that point. So I had one semester left, coached, worked as a PT assistant at a clinic of a guy that I got to know, and just tried to scrape enough money to do it. Get through that year was going to be no problem. I was just going to stay for that whole year. Well, the guy that coached me left because he just didn't feel like it was going to be something he could sustain. They hired a basketball assistant slash baseball. The guy, he hadn't coached baseball in a long time. Really nice guy. And he basically let me, I was the head coach. The year after I got done playing, I was the only one at indoor practices until basketball ended. The only one. It was me and like all the guys that I had recruited as a 22-year-old or 21-year-old. And then the next year, the head basketball coach was the AD, was an older guy, and he retired. They hired a younger baseball slash basketball head coach. He had less interest and experience in being a baseball coach. And he said, I don't care. You can do everything. So I was like, by title, I was the assistant, did all the recruiting, all the coaching, coached third, did it all. He just stayed in the dugout. And it was great. The players really respected him for allowing me to do that because I was the guy who was there every day. And then I don't know if this is 100% accurate. This is how I remember it. You want to know, like, luck plays a part into getting jobs, right? So I'm recruited. This is Clark College is a Catholic college. The president of the college is a BVM. She has a nephew who was a dude, like in East LA. Okay, so he was his blonde-haired, light skin as you could possibly be, and talked to him on the phone. And I honestly thought he was maybe from like a gang, like it just had the dialect. I mean, it was just like watching a movie. I thought I was talking to a guy from like just Latin Kings. It was just unbelievable. Really, really great conversation. Well, he blew out as a high school kid. Jimmy Patrick was his name. And so Jimmy, I loved him. And so I talked to him, recruited him, never talked to the president about him. And they had a conversation, and she just said to him, she's like, hey, what do you think? And he said, can you tell me why the guy I talked to is not the head coach? So she said, I don't know. Let me look into that. As a small college that's just starting athletics and just starting baseball. And so sure enough, like 2 days later, Jimmy Patrick was coming to Clark and I was the head coach. So,
all right.
right?
That's an incredible story. Okay.
Yeah. And so
wow.
And Jimmy was great. I mean, he was lights out. He was healthy. We recruited a couple other really good arms. So it was really fun for me to just like get it was my first group, and we were better when I was the assistant. Our records were better when I was the assistant because we had guys that had kind of grown into the program. But after I left, Sam, actually my friend, took over, and he was there for 3 or 4 or 5 years maybe, and they had really good success with that class that came in. And so you talk about, being 21 years old, having played with these guys, and all of a sudden you're legitimately the guy who's coaching them. So it was and I was friends with all of them. So it was just, but I knew what I wanted to do. And I just said, hey, I mean, can't hang out. I'm not going to parties with you. Right. It's just Sam, my buddy, and another guy who was my age that had transferred in. I mean, I hung out with those guys because they're my best friends there, even though I coached them for a year, right? So, and it was just a really good learning experience for me of forcing a person who was fairly mature, quite honestly. I mean, I was probably much more mature than the normal 21-year-old because I was super serious about knowing I wanted to do this. But when I knew that it was going to be my voice, then I just said, this can't happen. So it's going to suck being a 21-year-old with 19s and whatever, but I'm going to be a baseball coach. So this is what we're going to do. And so the first 2 years were a little bit tougher because I played with every one of those guys. The last year when I was a head coach was not tough at all because they're all guys that are recruited, and no matter how old I was, this is just how this program is going to operate. And what I did learn from like my experience of transferring and losing that year of eligibility as a guy who was like a preferred walk-on was just to be like really honest with everybody and have meetings with them when after fall ball, after the season. Hey, if we started tomorrow, you wouldn't be a starter. I mean, just if that was really important to them. So for me, like going back, I wish that I had more of a straight conversation about my second year in junior college. So, because I could have gone some places and played and just didn't, in my mind, didn't get as much opportunity as I was hoping for, but still got a ton out of it. Still learned. I wouldn't change it for the world because I learned a ton. So like me becoming a head coach, a lot of the baseball stuff that I knew and I really like was drawn to came from Kishwaukee and came from Coach Barnard. But a lot of his personality, he was like, it was old school. I mean, it was beyond old school sometimes. And I just, what I saw for myself was I thrived in that environment. I was fine being told that I wasn't any good and whatever. I mean, just being pushed like, older coaches would do. But what I did see is like, not everybody could handle that. I mean, and so it was like you either thrived or were destroyed. There were not a whole lot of in the middle people. Right. And so for me, it was trying to figure out how I could be me, still have high expectations. Accountability is a huge thing. It's always been a huge thing for me as a player. When I was just the assistant at Clark, the head coach, it was about being able to, me as well, take responsibility for things that weren't done right and why we didn't succeed and just try to have open and honest conversations with people, even if they're tough. I mean, I would have taken the tough conversation and been like, okay, so now I got some thinking to do. What do I want to do with this? And so that is what I do offer. What I've always offered is I try to be as straight and direct as I can. And you don't have to be an idiot or just be a mean person to have an honest conversation. And there are feelings, but it's less about me being friends with my players. It always has been, and me being a coach and me being more of trying to help you get better today and tomorrow, not make you feel good every day when you walk out of here and give you a hug, even when you didn't work hard. Right. So.
All right, Coach. Well, you got so much there. I was just thinking about this as you're talking. I'm in my classroom now recording, and I have a quote on my board. It says, "The greatest form of love I can show you is to tell you the truth."
Correct.
And I feel like when I heard that, it hit different because I think that's something as coaches, we really struggle with, and some more than others. And like, give coaches of any age at any level some advice. Like, how do you go into that conversation from a place of care and love, and this is what's best for you, but without sugarcoating or beating around the bush, whatever the analogy you want to use. It sounds like that's one thing that, you hang your hat on, is these honest, direct conversations. Give us
Yeah.
some advice there.
It's harder now. I mean, I would say there are less people willing to do it. And I don't think it's necessarily anybody's fault. I just think that's just kind of where we've gone. And it's, I don't know, I've said this, and this maybe would kind of get to what you're asking, I think, is that I think, like, if you had somebody that come and watch one of our practices that I coached my first year at Kishwaukee, they would say, "What, my God, what are you doing? This isn't real. You didn't even raise your voice once. You didn't scream at that kid. Look how lazy that guy looks." Right? And so you do evolve, and I have. I mean, there was a really big turning point in my life that kind of changed how I operate in general. But I would just say this, that I think in general, like the majority of my career, I would probably be considered a hard coach, an old school coach. But I do know that no matter how hard you are on somebody, if you're willing to have a conversation with them about why, they'll take it and they'll listen to it. And I'm just not being hard on you every day just to be hard on you, right? Being hard on you because you haven't made any adjustments and you haven't asked me any questions. So I'm saying the same thing to you every day, and yet I'm saying the same thing and you're still doing the same thing. So, like, I'm not changing. I'm giving you the same feedback. You're not adjusting, nor are you asking, what do I need to do? I feel like I'm doing this correctly. What am I doing wrong? Right. So, a lot of times it's me trying to get them to initiate the conversation. I don't have a problem with them being upset and frustrated and not being disrespectful to me and screaming back at me. That doesn't happen. And I don't do that to them. I mean, I lose my cool occasionally, not much. And I don't raise my voice very much. Never really have. Especially the older I get, the less it happens. But the expectations still have not changed. And so I think when you lay them out, for me, it has become pretty easy to have these conversations because it starts when we recruit these players. Like, our meeting is like when they come for an official visit, they probably walk out. I mean, almost always it's like, "Coach, thank you for giving this much time." I was like, "You're welcome. I want you to know as much about me and as much about this program. I don't want anybody coming here and then saying, 'Well, that wasn't said to me. I didn't know that. You told me this was going to happen. It didn't happen.'" Right. So for me, I think it becomes easier. Now, it's different with high school coaches, right? Because you're not recruiting your players. So that becomes a challenge. Dealing with parents at the high school level becomes a challenge. It does not happen here. It may happen at other colleges. It doesn't happen here, but that is all talked about in the recruiting visit. So I've got a little bit of an advantage to get to the one-on-one with the kid because of the level. So high school coaches, it's a different beast, but I do think what I had said before is true, that you can be hard on people. You can expect a lot of them, even if they don't expect a lot of themselves, as long as you're willing to explain to them why they're not playing or why you're frustrated with the lack of change or what hasn't changed. And a lot of times that will lead to a little bit more of an understanding and maybe them just hearing it differently or not, and not wanting to ask a question. Some guys are stubborn, want to figure it out themselves. Right. I mean, some people are afraid to talk to me. I mean, like, been here for a year and a half and just don't want to ask me a question, even though it's said all the time, "I can't help you if I don't know what you're thinking." Right. So it's an ever evolving relationship with each kid to get them to really take ownership of themselves. I mean, that's really what the big goal is here, as a human being, is to have them walk out of here prepared for life in general.
All right. So, you start laying things out in the recruiting process, getting a feel for, how they react, the questions they ask,
Yeah.
family dynamics, but eventually, right, season gets started. You got your first, team practice meeting, and you start laying out expectations. So
Yep.
two things comes to mind. Number one, what kind of format do you do that? And then what would you say, like, are your, pillars of your program? What is Madison College baseball about? If you had to answer that, kind of that elevator speech.
Yeah. So I can give you like just the kind of the general why I think our program stands out or what I think is good about our program, right? So I will just say this in the recruiting process, I do not talk negatively about any other program. I won't. I talk about what I think we do well. And our way is not the only way to be good. Baseball's played a lot of different styles and different ways at success. But no matter what program it is, if it's good program, there is a buy-in to what your system is and how you operate. And for guys who are looking at schools and recruiting, ask questions. Don't maybe these guys have won a lot and they've had this happen and this happen. That guy may not be a good fit for us, but he may be a really good fit for one of the other better teams that we play every year, just in how they play, the style they play. So I would put it out there for recruits when you're going, ask questions and ask tough questions. Like for me, I would just put the coaches on the spot and ask direct. Right? How many players do you have on your roster? How many players do you, I mean, just things that you want to know, you should ask instead of just listening to the coach talk only and not have any chance to feedback. But I would tell you, like if you were in our office and I was recruiting you, you wouldn't be in our office if I didn't think that you could play for us. I would have vetted you already with about 3 or 4 phone calls to people, not necessarily even like coaches so much. Like if I, in a perfect world, if I could find somebody outside of baseball, is this person a good person? Right. If he plays all the time, will he be the same as if he's not, if he's playing halftime or is not in the game at the end of the year? And right. Those type of things. So I just want to know what's their family like? Do their parents like complain to boards about their kids not getting to play? Because I said it before, we coach the players. We don't deal with the parents, and that's just kind of a college, right? Well, if I'll talk to the parents, and I'm very cordial to the parents, and if they want to know if their kid's working hard, I'll answer that question. And going to school, yeah, and all those things. So, like as far as like the expectations to our players, they're told that they just need to show up. I don't talk about playing time. I don't talk about anybody else other than you. Like no comparisons to you and somebody else. And so that is kind of laid out in the recruiting part of it. Also laid out day one, a little bit harsher than that probably. But I would just say, here's our strength. I really, really do have a high desire to be a really good program and a really good team. And that is kind of secondary to developing each player that chooses to be here. Right. And so when I say chooses to be here, we recruit players. We don't have it. Our scholarship amounts are not good. We fundraise everything we give, and we're the lowest scholarship in Division II JUCO in our region. So, but I don't think it's close. So we're not being chosen because of the amount of money that we can give, but it's not super expensive comparatively, like within the state for sure. So lay that out, and I just tell them right up front, if money is a large part of like your decision, this is what we've got. If you talk to your parents, if this can't work and you've got other options that you know you're going to consider and the finances are like way better, then you can save your time and I can save my time. Right. And it's okay. Just be honest with me and don't come just to come, because these visits are long. But then we talk about like the development of our guys, and that um, we play more players and give more opportunities to the guys that are recruited and deserve to be out there for opportunity than most of the good programs probably in the country or in our region for sure. And I'd say probably nationally, because we'll go, it's not just 50-50. I mean, it's not that way in the spring, but we'll get to about the halfway point and then we'll start kind of paring down opportunities from there. The kid may only play 1 out of 4 games or 1 out of 3 games, but he's going to get his opportunities. Because if I'm recruiting you and I tell you that I'm going to make you a better player and be more prepared for baseball beyond here, but you don't play because we only play 9 or 10 guys, you're not more prepared as a game player. So we do. And then if guys get hurt and we've given opportunity, it's not like 2 days before the regional tournament and you're putting a guy out there who's got 12 at bats, and because he's the only guy who can play defense at that position. Right. So I think that it's good for the team. I think it's great for the individual. Pitchers, their innings are different, but the number of outings that our pitchers throw is almost always within probably 2 or 3, unless it's a guy who somehow put himself into just a relief role or as a dual guy. So opportunity is there. That's part of it. At a good program, there's opportunity for guys to get themselves out there. And that development, I say it's like go to about a week before tournament. And then we'll start figuring out who are going to be our relievers based on what we saw through the regular season. Because if you're a starting pitcher and we've given you some opportunity and your numbers are good, like but you throw 105 pitches through 4 2/3 innings. No, we're using at least 2 starters in a game, and we don't want to do that in the tournament, right? So that makes you a reliever. You want to be, so I would just say this, they know what they need to do to be on the field at the end of the year for us. If you want a certain role as a pitcher, you want to be a starter, you better be a strike thrower, right? You want to be a guy that just wants a role no matter what and have good stuff and be able to strike guys out when we need you to. And so we throw a lot of strikes as a pitcher. So I would say pitching wise, we attack the strike zone. We, knock on wood, we're almost always probably the best or one of the best in our region at strikeout to walk ratio for sure. And I'm not a huge stat guy, but that's a big one for me. It's not even so much strikeouts. It's like number of walks per like number of innings that your pitchers have thrown. Right. So, and then with that, like just getting into these guys, it's okay to get your brains beat in. Right here. It's okay. I mean, if you're a guy who's going to give up 2 hits and you haven't been hit in high school your whole life, and you come here and all of a sudden we play a really good team and your first 2 pitches to good hitters are bullet to the gap and bullet to the gap, and all of a sudden now we're picking around the zone, you're not going to last very long. Right. So now we got to be a little bit better in the zone. So that's kind of the pitching talk is you've got to be willing to compete in the strike zone. And if you're a strike thrower and you're okay with that, then I'm okay with that.
All right, Coach. Now, before you go to the offensive side, I got to lean in on some
Yep.
pitching talk. What is? It's the talks, it's the mentality, it's pound the zone.
Yep.
How do you train it? Like, obviously you have a fall, indoor, this time of year when it's negative 1,000,000 degrees outside. Like, how do you structure that into your training environment to get that mentality, right? Because, of course, some kids are better strike throwers than others. Strike zone gets smaller at your level, hitters get much better. A lot of factors at play. How do you continue to train it and drive that message into your pitchers?
Well, a couple of things. Mechanically, I mean, there's things that we key on to try to help each guy. Arm slot and where they throw from, what their velocity is. I mean, all these things, how much of their body they're using. So there's a lot of mechanical talk that I feel like we do that helps even the guys that come in here with really good arms that don't throw as many strikes. I think we've had pretty good success with really good arms that were somewhat erratic, but looked like they weren't overthrowers. We've had a lot of success with those guys. So I would just say this: our fall is really structured to. I haven't changed. This is one thing that I won't change on. I'm not a weighted ball guy. We don't do drive line. We don't do any of the velocity program stuff. I'm still the believer of long toss, physical strength in the weight room, especially with your legs. Will hold your velocity, and long toss and arm speed will increase your velocity at the right pace, not to rush to throw harder tomorrow by doing all these crazy things that are out there. And then we throw a lot, right? So we protect arms, but we throw a lot. And we will throw to a target nearly every day. And not on the mound, whether it be flat ground, whether it be on a mound called short box. Some people call it a short box. I just say go throw spots off the mound, or if you want to throw spots flat ground or on the mound, your choice. But we are almost, and I really deal, it's kind of would be hard to get into on here. This is more of a like a clinic talk, but I'm really big in learning how to throw at percentages and knowing what that means. And you're not going to know if you're throwing 52% or 58% sometimes, but you know what like how fast your body wants to move. And for me, the slower and the lower percentage that a guy can throw at without decelling, those are your guys who are going to have command. Almost always. They're the guy that can pick a ball up and throw it to first on a PFP and don't have to take a wind up or move their body in a position to feel comfortable to throw. And so we do a lot of PFP stuff, tons with our pitchers. And my terminology is elbow to fingertip. I've used that for years. I don't know where I got it from, if I heard it from somebody or it's just something that came out one day and I stuck with it. But those are like, as you're letting go of the ball, we just want this loose accelerated movement, whether it's a long arm swing or a short arm swing. It's got to come out without decelerating, without pushing, or without having to like change your arm slot to make a throw. So I would say that like the development of attack the strike zone is kind of talked about immediately. Guys that haven't thrown two seam fastballs before they got here will throw them, whether they use them in games or not. It ends up being like their comfortability and like what they're doing will kind of force it into fall. I've evolved a little bit. We used to not throw breaking balls until like the last 2 weeks of fall, and it was just fastball changeup to show guys. And I got this from the guy I played for at Kishwaukee. Like, if you can't get somebody out and you're afraid to throw a fastball, no matter how good your off speed is, eventually you're not good enough. Because there are some guys out there that can see spin and lay off of balls that aren't in the strike zone. And so there's a lot of truth to that. But we do. So we throw a lot, but we don't throw it like max intent. I'm not a big pull down guy. It's like long tosses, not necessarily throw it as hard as you can all the time. It's loose, quick, easy, extended, no more than like 35, 45 degrees. So it's not throwing pop flies to each other. And so it's just like this routine that's been effective here. And so, okay, this is not a normal thing now, right? Everybody wants to know if we've got it. What's your throwing program? Our throwing program's the same thing that it's been forever. And here's where I finally had to have a talk with an incoming class, and it was probably 2 years. No, it's the class that's here now as sophomores. But I'd done this for, at that point, 28 years and had coached two guys in 28 years that came to me with no arm injury, no surgery, and left having to have Tommy John, 2 in 28 years. Okay. We had 1 year, a 2-year span, but 1 year where 4 guys were shut down. 3 of them ended up needing to have surgery right away. And then the next year we had 2. And I just said, I am not taking this anymore. Like I can't just say, okay, we'll just figure it out when they get here, because we don't recruit a lot of players. We have a roster limit. We can't afford to bring in 20 guys. And if 6 of them blow out, it's okay. We got enough. And I wouldn't be okay with that anyway. And so I got a really big recruiting class coming last year who are sophomores now. And I got them as soon as our season was over and we lost another guy at our series. I just said, hey, I know I talked about this in the recruiting visit. I just want to let you know, if you're going to do any weighted ball stuff, it has to be told to me up front. I have to know when you're doing it. I've got to know what throwing programs you're on, because I believe in shutting down still for at least 6 to 8 weeks. So just laid it all back out there again. And I just said, hey, I get it. I mean, I know what's out there. And if you don't want to do this, we'll release you from your scholarship and I'll help you find a place, even if it's in our region. Every one of them came, knock on wood, 0 injuries last year. Not one. There was no, literally one guy shut down because of a bad back for about 3 or 4 weeks. But nobody shut down because of arm care and arm injury. So it's like, now I'm asking these guys, how much have you thrown? Have you done velocity programs? Have you ever? So now I'm more diligent with those questions. And there is value in gaining velocity by throwing in velocity programs. But unless you have somebody on top of you who is watching and knows if you're in a healthy spot, I just feel like they're too dangerous. And so we have guys that still throw weighted balls, but we have conversations. And they do it on their own time with people that I just said, you've got to do it with somebody who knows what they're doing. I'm not going to endorse us doing it every day and taking time out of the day to do it. And we got guys that throw plyos before they get on the mound. And so it's not like I'm opposed to all of this stuff. And if it's not a real ball, you can't have it in your hand. But I do know that one of the most things I'm most proud of in all of my coaching is that we don't overthrow guys. I've had one guy start on short rest in my entire coaching career. And we had 2 days of a rain out in 2017. And it was a guy who literally wanted to fight me for the ball. He's like, you're going to throw me in relief because I'm just 1 day short, aren't you? I was like, I probably would throw you in relief. Well, why can't I just have my normal routine? I think it seems safer to me. So he got the ball. Jack Egan, I'm not sure if remember Jack Egan. And Jack was a beast of a human anyway. And the guy that we played, Kankakee, ended up winning the World Series that year and beat us. And they faced off against each other, the two pitchers, and they both threw 5 innings, about 75 or 80 pitches. And so, but it did. It took him coming to me saying, I know you're not going to throw me. I know. But if you're going to throw me, I would rather have my normal. Yeah. So he had a great plan to get himself on the mound to be the only one. But I want to win, and we will throw guys more pitches later in the year. But we're not going to go try to win a game on April 2nd and run a dude out there for 125 pitches to win a game. Right. So I think that there's something to, and I would just say this to the high school coaches. I've had this conversation with many high school coaches, and it's tough. I get like winning and wanting to win conference and all those things are important. It's not like they're not important. Everybody in high school makes the playoffs. So you're going to get to the state tournament. You're going to need more than 2 pitchers or 3 pitchers. So take a loss, throw some guys. Just whatever. It's not going to make or break whether you win when it really matters at the end. And so I would like to see that. And I'm glad that the high school finally put like the pitch count in. How many years has that been, Coach? Do you know?
2016 was the last year without a pitch count. Yeah.
Yeah. And I still honestly feel like it should be a little bit more stringent, but I do get that some schools don't have enough pitchers or guys right. So there at least is something out there. But my least favorite thing to hear from any coach at any level is, well, I asked him and he said he felt fine. Okay, well, you asked a 17-year-old kid in a dugout with his teammates right there. What is this kid going to say to you? So sometimes you've got to think for the player. And like I said, it's not like we haven't extended guys out or thrown guys pitches and me just kind of think, man, maybe we can use them for an inning. But if it's happening just a little bit at the end of the year and it's not egregious, then I am okay with doing that. Like as we're making this run postseason, but I just think that you sometimes coaches at all levels need to think for the players, and this would come from a guy who just said we throw a lot, right? But game pitches and throwing to a spot are different.
That's what I was just going to say, getting a feel for the seams and playing catch versus pitching off a mound with high intent and
Correct.
Stretching guys out is very different.
Correct.
Well, I'd be remiss if we didn't kick over to the offensive side of the ball. I think you painted a pretty clear picture of the mound and philosophy and why you do what you do, and maybe that ruffles some feathers. But, I think part of your guys' brand is your offense. You alluded to it early on with 2-strike approach, but, whatever you're willing to give away here on the Old Baseball Wisconsin podcast and our millions of listeners. But, when I talk offensive side of the ball, what are some of your convictions?
Well, I've kind of already hit on it. We really work a lot to be comfortable hitting with 2 strikes. And just guys, that is the one thing as a swing that has to be bought into. I've got a lot of guys that hit a lot of different ways and have had over all of my time, but they have to be willing to hit with two strikes the way that we want, which is pretty, you probably heard. Well, actually, Coach Nick Guile, right? Okay, so I'll never ever forget this conversation. I think his freshman year. I mean, he was probably pull side primarily as a high school kid, right? I mean, it's just these guys got power, and he's a really good player, and so. But our approach with two strikes is fastball away and react to everything else. So if you take an outside pitch for strike three, it does not go well here. So don't tell me you thought it was out. Now, if you just can't pull the trigger on an inside black, we'll deal with it. Eventually, we can't just do that over and over too, because the guy made a good pitch on you. You got to be willing to get jammed, right? So, but with Nick, he gets a he gets a pitch like outer third or outside corner and hits a backside homer a long ways with a wood bat in Arizona against Scottsdale. I remember who it was against. And he comes and he goes after the game. He's like, why haven't I heard this in my brain the same way? Because it's like he hadn't heard this before or something similar to it. But he's just like, this just resonates with me so much. He's like, I don't even have to think about hitting with two strikes anymore. He's just like, I'm almost comfortable when I get here now. And he was a guy who did. He had long arms and body movement and all this stuff to try to get his pull side swing off on. And he got here and he was just getting beat like inside. And so it was just like a relief, like, oh, man, why didn't this click with me 2 years ago? I would have killed it in high school. That's kind of what he said, right? And so guys just get different places at different times, and he's heard the same thing said different ways. And for whatever reason, something just finally clicked with him on game 6 of his freshman year in the spring. And he was really good with two strikes the rest of his time here. He just became a really tough out. And so, it's not, no secret. I've coached, I say the same things I've said for 30 years. So anybody who's heard me talk during a game is like, so get jammed if you have to, comes out of my mouth all the time. Jammed if you have to. So that doesn't mean we want to get blown up. Doesn't mean that a reaction swing to the pull side over the left fielder's head would be great for a righty. But if you're not taking pitches and your hands are fighting to get through them, a lot of times those are the frustrating ones for the defense, because you're just jammed just enough that it lands between the shortstop and the left fielder, or between the second baseman and the first baseman. It's just ass out, hands, shoulders closed, hands work well enough. You hit it hard enough, it just rolls between first and second. It's like another lucky hit. Those aren't lucky. If you got a chance to hit and your hands are back, then you can hit any pitcher with no matter what their stuff is. If your hands are back and your front side is still closed, you've got a chance to react to anybody. But if we're spinning, if we're lifting, if we're vaulting, if I'm guessing this guy's going to throw me a breaking ball and I get a fastball, you're not going to hit it. You're taking strike 3. And I do know, right? I gamble a little bit, and I like gambling, and I like odds. I know your odds of taking a ball down the middle and us getting a hit are 0. Right? So just give us a chance. Give yourself a chance. And so that really is it with the two strikes. But we bunt a lot when we need to. It's not like it's just all small ball game. And I would even tell you that it's not small ball. I call it pressure. We play pressure baseball. And our bunt game is not necessarily drags. Unless we've got a guy who can drag, then we'll take it whenever he wants to do it and lead off an inning or get a guy on. But they have tempo to them, and they force the first baseman, second baseman, and pitcher to communicate. If they force the third baseman and the pitcher to react on a ball where there's a guy on second base and the third baseman doesn't want to charge, right? And if he bluffs at it and can't figure out, hey, should I go or not? Now we got first and third and nobody out. And that's almost an automatic push bunt to the first baseman to that side. And it's undefendable. We just call it the automatic. It's if we need a run and we're really good at it, it's the automatic. And then because we've done it so much and been good at it, a lot of times people will play us in. and that just opens for stealing of third base. It opens for like bluff steals and hit and runs. It just creates what I think is really fun offense to play in, and as a fan, I would love to go watch a team that just forces people to play on their heels. And doesn't always happen. Sometimes we're bad at it like everybody else. But when it's really good, it's really fun to watch and really enjoyable. So, so for us, like the pillars, throw strikes, play really good defense. We want to be the best defensive team out there, hit with two strikes, timely hitting, and make them handle pressure if we need them to. And so that's really, those are, I'd say, if you're asking for the pillars of, like, I think why our team is successful when we need to score one run. That's so, I think you'll probably appreciate this. And I'm not sure how much about like what we've done with our practices, just because we've had some players here, right? But we do something called, and I think other people do it, so it's not like we've invented this, but it is a really, really large part of our fall at times. And if we can do it in the spring, it usually doesn't happen because we're playing so much. But just to show the value of it, we'll give the pitchers who, like, it's fun to joke and say they're not athletes now. When you get to high school and you're a pitcher, you're just a PO, you can't do anything else. So we'll put two pitcher teams against each other, so they get to hit and act like baseball players again in the field in their minds, but it's just offense. And then there's two defenses, and it's 27 outs or 50 outs or how many ever outs you want to do. We typically play 27 because that's a 9-inning game, and you're counting down, right? So what our team will hear from me often is there are a lot of teams that want to hit to win games. They're way more comfortable with the bat in their hand. There are not very many teams that say, man, give me the ball, let's go pitch and play really good defense to get off the field and get ourselves to a national tournament. So for me, we spend these guys would love to hit more in the fall, but we spend so much time defensively because that's our time outside. So our team stuff happens in the fall, a lot of it. It's just like a ridiculous amount of ground balls and fly balls at times. It's probably lightened up a little bit over the years. So I've been told by people I run into. So it's like, Coach, we took fly balls with 5 outfielders for an hour a day. So it may be true. It may not be true. It doesn't happen that way anymore. But we do spend a ton of time on defense because, as you know, so here's a great question for a player. How many of you guys have had a hitting coach outside of like high school or college or whatever? Everybody, right? How many people have had a defensive coach outside of here? Other than the catchers, maybe one. And because he couldn't hit, he had to do something to try to get himself on the field, right? So it's like, hey, there are a lot of people in the world who can hit, man. And you're going to be around guys who can hit. So if you can't play defense, you can't play. You're not going. If the only way you end up on the field is if I have to say we are bad defensively at a position, right? And we think that you're going to drive in more than you give up. That's a bad plan, and it's very uncomfortable for coaches if you're just always on your heels thinking, man, we got to score a ton today, right? Because you're going to run into a dude that's just going to shove, and you're going to have to win a 2-1 game. So.
Well, Coach, I think about your situation, the ever evolving door of not just junior college baseball, but, I feel like you're 1 year at a time, but the program speaks for itself. And I know all the accolades and the Hall of Fames and the championships and World Series appearances and so many things. But I think it really helps us and the listeners like really get an idea of what it's like to be a part of your program and the time and the care and the effort and, all different types of swings, all different types of programs they come from the high school level, the collegiate level, and just your evolution as a coach through your personal life, your professional life. But like, I'm just really intrigued, you talk to a lot of coaches, you're around a lot of baseball people, you just belong on a diamond, even though I got you in an office today. But like, what advice would you give some coaches of any age? A lot of our listeners are high school coaches like myself. Just being around the game so much, having so much success. Like, what advice would you give us?
Um, be true to yourself, right? I mean, I think we talked a little bit about the accountability piece. Um, I say so. When you and I had talked before, just through email, and you sent like some like maybe some questions that you might ask. One of them in there was best advice, right? And I honestly don't know who gave it to me, or if they did, or if it's just stuff that I picked up from paying attention to all these coaches. But just be consistent. Be the same guy every day. Don't I mean it's not like we all have this. Even coaches have this. Even Nick Saban, right? It may have been like this, right? What that dude as locked in as he was as a coach, and all the great ones. Everybody has bad days, right? But to I've had some younger coaches call me and just say, "Hey, do you got any advice for me? I've tried everything with these guys. I've tried to be nice to them. I've tried to do this." And I said, "Hey man, how about just trying to show up the same way every day and have them adjust to you as the coach?" Um, I think that there is real value in that. One of my better friends in coaching is Todd Post is his name. He just retired from Kankakee. Um, I think maybe this is his third year out. Posty was beyond intense. I mean, this guy was like old school. I mean, I loved him and just every little detail, not just on the baseball field, but if you did not roll the hose right and that was your job, then you were unrolling the hose again and rolling it up until you did it right. I mean, some of the stuff that I saw when we were playing them just made me laugh so hard and not feel bad for the kid because they liked it. So, but I would just say this: I've also run into people who played for him. He's like, oh, he was just so hard every day, just like never good enough. And I get that from our guys, but our personalities are different. But I would just say this: there's no way in the world that if you went and visited Coach Post's program and watched a game and talked to him, that you didn't know what you were walking into, right? And his great teams had a bunch of guys that were like him and just grind, grind, grind. And so I think I always respected him because he was the same dude every day. There was never a day where he didn't look the same, where it wasn't as important to him. And there are some older guys that are still around. Steve Ruzich just went into the ABCA Hall of Fame at South Suburban, South Side suburb, hard nosed dude. His program, you know what you're running into every time you walk in there. You know what they're going to be and how they're going to be, and that they just will be relentless fighters. And they take the personality of their coach. In their best years, they really take the personality of the coach. I think for us in our best years, same thing. Just guys that can think. For me, I think one of the things I really value in trying to be consistent is to try to let these guys figure stuff out on their own, right? And be the owner of themselves. It's not like we don't talk a lot and give them a lot of suggestions of things they can do to get better, but you can't. I always say to guys who are leaving here, I'm not going to be there next year, and I know you're really comfortable here now, but you can't call complaining to me that your coach next year is doing this and that, and because this is where you chose to go to school. Did you ask these questions when you were recruited? Right? Then shut up, do what they want you to do, and get your ass on the field. Right? So each program that's the program. So you should do the research. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. I've got many, many flaws as a coach. Organization's one of them, right? So there are just things that I think that make people successful and programs successful often. And no matter who they are and what their philosophies are, I would guarantee you that nearly every one of those coaches, you walk in every day and you wouldn't know what day you were there, right? You'd have no idea if they won the day before or lost the day before. And I do think that that is one of the things that I valued from Coach Barnard at Kish. Would say, he'd always talk about pro scouts because we had a ton coming and a lot of guys that even played in the major leagues out of that program. is like, hey, if a scout shows up and he knows you're 4 for 4 with 4 hits or 0 for 4 with 4 hits, you'll never make it. If he can tell how your day is going based on what your results are, you're not going to be good enough. And so there is a lot of truth to that. And I think it's hard to ask a player to be consistent if the coach one day is like, well, I'm going to try to be their friend today, and tomorrow I'm going to yell at them, and then the next day we're going to like play games, and we're just going to, right? So just figure out what you want out of it, and there's no wrong. There really isn't much wrong. Just you, be consistent, and your players will know what's important to you. And I would say that would be my best piece of advice I could give anybody.
Coach, that's fantastic. I just looked up at the time. I got you for over an hour, but I gotta ask you a couple more.
Okay.
Sorry, but we're
I
talking about.
honestly came in thinking, man, I don't know if I can talk for a half an hour, 40 minutes.
Oh my
You
gosh.
got me going today, so maybe it's because it's negative 25.
Hey, I got plenty more questions, but I'll cut to the end for you. So WBCA, Wisconsin Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Fame inductee 2026. Again, you've gone in as a player, as a coach. You're going to go and deservedly so, right? I got two questions for you. Number one,
Yeah.
kind of the state of baseball in the state of Wisconsin. When you think about baseball in the state of Wisconsin right now, you've been around here for 20 plus years, been in this area your whole life in some capacity. So if you had to describe, kind of the state of baseball in the state of Wisconsin right now, how would you answer that?
It's better from the time that I walked in till now. There are more talented players, and I think there's a lot of factors for that. I've said this way. So I grew up in Northern Illinois, right? Almost every player on this roster, especially the last 10, 15 years, have been from the state, right? So this is Wisconsin's junior college, in my mind. And Alex at Bryant and Stratton and Caleb at Milwaukee, they're both doing a good job. I hope they're around for a while. They got their programs in a pretty good spot. We need more options for this state. In my mind, I grew up in Northern Illinois, right? There are 46 junior colleges in Illinois that play baseball. We've got 4, Western Tech, and they're with Minnesota JUCOs or Minnesota D3. So we've got 4 in our state. They've got 46, right? So I grew up in Illinois, hour west of Chicago, so just not probably considered a suburb, but close enough that I was in Chicago area a lot, especially when I was at Kishwaukee recruiting that area. And so here's how I would describe it, and I think there's a lot of truth to this. When I first started here, not very many people thought that they could play professional baseball. They might say that they want to. There's a difference of saying I want to, and I'm really thinking I'm going to work, and this is going to happen. In Illinois, there were just every conference had a guy from the Chicagoland area who would, like, within 3 years, had like skyrocketed up. So they'd actually seen people, whether they were like 12 or whatever, right? They'd seen people. So there were more people who legitimately knew it was possible, even though the odds are crazy, right? I mean, to get to the major leagues, but to be drafted, to have opportunities, all those things. And here there were people there. Everybody here, every team we've had, really, really hardworking people in Wisconsin in general. So it wasn't for lack of anything. It was just for a lack of, this really hasn't happened. So is it really possible? And instead of like grinding and going into an independent league, it's like, I'm just going to start my life at 21 or 22. Illinois, you had guys playing independent ball till they were 24, 25, just like grinding the heck out of it, giving every last effort they could to try to achieve. And there's not a wrong or a right to that either. I mean, moving on with your life is not a problem. But I would say club baseball has gotten better in our state. Hitters has produced how many first rounders? Drake Baldwin played for GRB. Josh Karen is in AA now with the Mariners. I mean, you go GRB. So you go through. Sticks has had guys. I mean, so now there's more than just like RJ started hitters, and he was kind of the first one to get things going. But I do think that guys playing with people that they've seen actually fail Like as a high school, even though they were great high school players and great beyond here, Gavin Keelan, right? I mean, so just tons and tons of guys that now we know can do this. So I do think Michael Carpenter went to Arrowhead High School, and I believe he was their number 4 starter as a senior. And there's not a blast against Arrowhead's coaches. They had really good players, and Michael was only throwing 84, 85 miles an hour, and like breaking ball was good. But he came here, developed the right way, was not into like throwing heavy balls and chasing velo, was a great pitcher, commanded it. He just got over $500,000. I mean, like essentially as a 5th rounder with the Twins, and has done well, right? I mean, so that it does happen. We've had other drafts like that have gotten 100,000s and more, right? And so it it started to happen a little bit more often because of the indoor facilities. People can practice more often. We now have more teams that play at the national level, so players are being seen. It'd be awesome if the Badgers would bring back baseball, right? But these guys are, I mean, even if the Badgers had baseball, you would have some of these kids. I mean, you're going to turn down, Cal Fisher's not going to turn down Florida State, right? It's going to be pretty tough anyway, I would imagine. So we can go down the line, and we just got a lot of really good players in this state that now are provided a national look. And then they think they're good enough to play because now they're playing at a national level and having success. There are plenty of guys 20 years ago that could have done some of these same things if it was structured the same way. But so I think the state of baseball in general is they're way better players. Now, I said that we got all these indoor facilities. I am still a fan of multiple sport athletes. I think playing year-round anything, like there are some guys who can do it and just be machines. Jared Kelnick comes to mind. That guy is just an absolute baseball machine. Like just worked and loved the work. But there are not very many Jared Kelnicks that could do what he did and not just say, you know what, I did this. It's not going very well right now. I'm just going to shut it down because I've spent from the time I was 8 until 18. I didn't get what I wanted with my scholarship offer. So I'm going to be done now. So there just got to be some sort of balance in there for nearly everybody. And there are not very many people who can just legitimately do this without just a wear down and body wear down, throwing too much. We got, crying out loud, I'm seeing guys throw bullpens now, right now. I mean, I've seen guys somebody just invited, a pro team just invited our guys knowing they hadn't started throwing yet to come throw a bullpen just easy with their whole organization there. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it's going to be easy. Right. And our guys just started playing catch again like 3 weeks ago. So I'm like, no. So we all know what adrenaline does to us. Right. So I think that the opportunities that kids have now are great. And there are more high level players because of the amount of time guys can spend. But I would encourage everybody to take a breath, step back, and don't just, your life isn't only because you're a good baseball player. Go have other hobbies. And spend a lot of time getting better with what you really want to do. But just there is burnout. I've seen it since I've been here, and it's more and more. There's more and more burnout with kids just because it's been just so intense for them for so long.
Well, we really just appreciate your perspective, right? The chair you sit in, for how long you've done it, at the level you've done it. You've got a really good decades database that says, hey, this is what it was, this is what it is right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have you just kind of to walk us off here. Going to the WBCA Hall of Fame, Coaches Association. You've been so great to the association over the years. What does that mean to you, Coach?
It means a lot. It's kind of funny. I was like, it's a little bit, not saying this way. I'm really appreciative, but as a college coach, getting a Wisconsin High School Hall of Fame, nomination and going in, what it means to me is Wisconsin's got really good players and really good coaches. So we wouldn't have won as many games and gone to as many national tournaments if we didn't have players that we could recruit at this level that we knew could, and it's not by luck. So there are a lot of really good high school coaches in Wisconsin. Like I said, the clubs have helped. I mean, there's a lot of avenues for people, but no, super appreciative. Yeah, I was honestly surprised when I got the phone call. And but yeah, like really, really honored. It's nice to know, and it's just I'm from, like I said, from Northern Illinois, but has to be Wisconsin players primarily, just because of the numbers and of where guys have opportunities to go, and I am really glad that you know the high school coaches that I've talked to over the years, I do think value how this place operates, and it's been nice dealing with the majority of coaches in the state. So it really this is I mean I'm going in, but it's really the state's award. These are Wisconsin guys that have provided me the luxury of looking like I'm a good coach.
And there it is. Huge thank yous out to Coach Davenport for jumping out with us today. Like I said, Coach D has got a long list of accomplishments, but one thing that stands out to me is just how humble he is. Right, he talks about his staff, the players that have come through. This Hall of Fame inductee is more about the people around him. It's not him, but those who've been paying attention for 22 plus years now that's been quite the change. And just the level of play, and it's a national program now, and you could just look at their roster every year, see where the next steps are, and that JUCO model is just so unique for people who aren't familiar with it. But you get a chance to go watch them play this year, an unbelievable brand of baseball that just produced an insane amount of winning. So I just again want to say thanks again for listening and tuning in, and have a great rest of your day.